Hello DevOps people, how are you? I'm Jochen, welcome to my live coding stream. Welcome. Today I'm going to continue my recent Rails development sessions, and I'm going to recap shortly what I've done so far and what I'm going to do today. As always, if you have any questions, if you just want to say hi, if there is something you'd like me to explain, or if there's something that totally boggles your mind, just let me know in the chat. And we'll discuss it there. So, as always, here's the plan for my previous session, Rails model restructuring. I'll say a few words on that in a second. And in this issue on my GitHub repository for this stream, which is at gvis/devops with a 0, or you can simply use the bit.ly/devopslive link. You'll find the session recording from last Thursday on my company's YouTube channel. And so I'll close this issue, which leaves today's issue, which is extend user permission schema. And of course, I'll add the recording link later when I've processed the recording. I guess that's the housekeeping stuff. And so let's dive right in. What I'm working on is our hosting dashboard, an application that's built with Ruby on Rails. And quite a while ago, we realized that the way we connect websites we host with the users who maintain these websites in a very complicated way and in a very inflexible way. And that's what I'm trying to resolve here. So what I've done is, instead of the pretty convoluted way a website is connected to a user, I introduced a new model. Let me just get it on the screen for you. And this model is called website collaboration. It builds a direct connection between the website model and the user model. It's pretty surprising that it hasn't existed before, but yeah, that's the way software grows, I guess. And this relationship has another attribute named role, which at the moment can have two values, collaborator or owner. And collaborator is the default role. So that's exactly where I'd like to pick up for today's session, because depending on this role, it's pretty obvious that a user should have different permissions, and adding the necessary permissions will be a bit of work, I guess. And it'll require a few additional methods in the website and user models, I guess. So let's take a closer look. Before I do that though, I'd like to rebase the changes that I have done so far. Just to have a clean clean state from where I can build. So we had the website collaboration model. We needed to fix the style. That's definitely a fix-up. Then I had to rename the factory, which is also a fix-up. Then I added the role, but that's okay. That's then we had I added an admin script, which I don't believe I'll actually need, but anyway. And then we had to add the indexes for website collaboration, and we'll keep that a separate commit as well. Okay, now that's a bit cleaner. Okay. Now, let's take a closer look at how website defines its permissions. Who is able to view a website, who is able to update website details and things like that. That's all built in this file, ability.rb. I'm using the can gem, which is a continuation of the can gem. That's why the module still has the name can. And this gem makes it much easier to define permissions on models. And so I grouped all these here in define website permissions, and that's the website model itself, and the models below are associations of the website model. So we have the website model, and depending on that, each website has auxiliary domains, it has databases, and it has SSH keys. The way we define permissions at the moment is we take the cluster to which a website belongs, and if the company ID of that cluster is equal to the current user's company ID, the user may read website information, and under the same condition they can also update. So I'd like to use methods to add additional permissions. So I'd like to say something like can read website, and then a method call on the actual method in the website instance, so that website itself can determine if someone has permission or not. And then I can change the business logic as I go along. To do that, I'll have to read a bit on how can works. Because it's been far too long since I last used can or did a bit of coding on it. Defining abilities, that's what I need to know. Let me see. we go. Hash of conditions. It is important to only use database columns for these conditions. So we might not be able to use methods in the first place. But I can use scopes, okay. Array or range can be passed to match multiple values. Okay. Almost anything that you can pass to a hash of conditions in active record will work here. The only exception is working with model IDs. You must pass in the IDs. Okay. Or I could use abilities with blocks. Okay, that's more in the direction I want to do it, so I can pass in the object and then I can tackle this with code. Perfect. Only for object attributes. The block is only evaluated when the actual instance object is present. It is not evaluated when checking permissions on the class. Okay, it doesn't work on the class itself, it only works on object instances. Okay, so let me think. What I'd like to do is can read website. If the current user is among the website's collaborators. Huh. How do I build that? Since we deal with different features here, let's find out what version of CanCan we are using. Yep. Still 110, so not 116, so we can't use the newer stuff, or 1.6. Oh, 1.6, and we are using 110, right? 110, okay. So, okay. It's possible to pass a scope instead of an SQL string when using a block in an ability. In this case, article published, do, article published at. Yeah, I guess we could start by working on the website model. And simply adding a few Boolean methods that determine if a user is allowed to work on a website or if a user is a collaborator on this website. Let me see. Okay. So we can add this before we have these chef store helpers here. So I'd like to have a method. User is collaborator. And we'll add a user. Let's default to false. And def user is owner. And let's also start with building tests. This context when user is a collaborator. And let's have another context when user is an owner. And of course the negative case when user is not a collaborator. In this case, let's create a collaborator user. We'll create a website. We connect them. Let's call it relation. Create website. Or we can call it collaboration with user and website. And that's the preparation. have read access. That's the same as above. Expect user to be able to read website. Let's see if this works. Expect. I should make this a focus test here. That way the test suite will only execute my test here. Method missing, create is not available on an example group. Okay, yeah. Fair enough. Which line is it? Lines. Website spec 151. Here. Previously, when I started this application, I started with using let and the accompanying blocks, but since then I've switched to have only local variables because this let business introduces the mystery guest issue. Hi value detector, how are you doing? Welcome to my stream. Happy to have you here. Yeah, it makes tests much more maintainable if everything the test needs is defined and even maybe torn down again in the test block itself. Thanks for following, I appreciate very much. So now that I've set this test suite to focus, it'll only execute 33 tests, which is only about 10% of the tests I have in total, and I had one failure. So let's see what that failure was. Null value in column user ID violates not null constraint in website collaborations. So I'll have to work with user ID and oh, that's strange. Why is that? Maybe because it's a through association. I'll have to refresh my memory on that. Undefined method ID for nil class. User is not defined. Maybe that's the original problem here. Okay, that makes much more sense. If user is 0, of course we get a null constraint violation because it's collaborator. Collaborator. And I think that's another advantage of using local variables for that, because if you do stupid mistakes like this, you'll quickly find them. So we have a collaborator, we have a website, and this collaborator should be able to read the website object. And yeah, I'll comment on that later. Let's first see the test run. Undefined method can for user. That is strange. That is really strange because all the previous tests work in the same way, that they check if users here, I have a user which is nil here. I don't know why I would create one then. That's a bit strange. And then I redefine user here, where I build a user. And then I get undefined method can. Shouldn't user be somehow user is not directly connected to can in that way. Instead it's via this ability class. That's strange. Testing abilities. Let's check how things work here. Describe user, describe ability, subject ability. Okay. Okay. So I need to create a new ability and test that. That's why. Okay. Yeah, I didn't read that right. Here I define subject ability, and that's what I'm testing in all these tests. I'm testing an ability on, and not the user model it directly. So what I have to do is, if I don't want to rely on these predefined things, which I don't, I'll have to create me a new ability based on collaborator, and then test the ability. I'm far too rusty in doing these things. in fact, the issue of making these changes and to simplify things and make them more flexible is 2 years old. And this is the first time I'm actually working on this issue. So, expected to be able to read website, but wasn't. Huh, okay. Have I even built the ability? I haven't, have I? No, I haven't. Okay. So, thing is, I should be able to say can read website do and pass in the website. Oops. If website user is collaborator and pass in the user that has in turn been passed into defined website permissions. Let's see if this fixes the test. When I first built this ability file, I followed the documentation of can, and they turned to the hash way of defining permissions by default. Oops, still not. We'll have to check that. But let me finish that sentence first. Yeah, I did that, but I find that this hash syntax is a bit convoluted and might be very hard to read, especially though these things should be defined in the website model, I think. The website model itself should be able to decide who may access it or not. And having that completely in a completely different file where it's described by some strange hash notation with nested hashes and stuff, I'm not really sure if that's the way. I should even go a step further and say user can read and user can update, and then have that in private methods in the website model. But let's get this working first. Let's do some simple debugging here. Collaborator. Website user is. Oh, we can put this in a test as well, can't we? Let's put this right in front of the access control part. It recognizes collaborators, so I don't need the ability class. class expect collaborator, no, website user is collaborator user to be true. So this test should go through. If not, we don't need to even check the ability part, because that will definitely fail. I like this song. Let's give it a thumbs up. Yeah, of course, still the same error. It's not user, it's collaborator. Ah, look at that. We expected true and got false. Yeah, well, of course. There is no logic. Okay, so let's add a more high-level method here. User can read and delegate that to user is collaborator or user is owner. Hey Sadak, how you doing? I know Ruby on Rails is a framework, but what language is it based on? You've answered that yourself. It's Ruby based. Rails is the framework, and Rails is written in Ruby. So we'll actually use this in our access control part here, down below. No, we don't have to. It's in the ability definition. User can read. I guess that's how I'd like things to be. I simply define can read a website if the website decides that the user can read, and everything else is built into website. What kind of hosting or server is required for it to be used as a web app? So there are different runtimes where you can run Ruby applications. The one preferred at the moment, I think, is called Puma, and normally you do use a Puma server that runs the web application itself, and then you put a more conventional web server in front of it as a reverse proxy, so for example Apache or Nginx, and that proxy then allows you to do a bit more sophisticated stuff like SSL certificates or multi-threading, access control and stuff like that. So Puma itself, I don't think is very flexible in doing these things. I don't even know if you would be able to add SSL to Puma, or if it just speaks HTTP. But normally, as I said, you simply put an Nginx or something in front of that, which does all the user-facing stuff like SSL handshakes and things like that. Okay, so user can read. Now, user can read will only work if user is collaborator or user is owner. Actually works. So, how do we find out if a user is a collaborator? I'd say I go to website collaborations. Where find by I'm working on a web application which is basically our company's hosting dashboard, the customer-facing UI, and I'm working on some internal wiring that connects the websites we host to the users who maintain the websites. This application, I think I've built it 4 or 5 years ago, and naturally there are a few things that I want to do differently than I did them in the past. And one thing is the relationship between websites and users. I'd like to make this much simpler as it is today, and I've already added a relationship between users and websites, which hasn't existed before, only in an indirect way. And now I'm extending this to use it in to define permissions, who may access a website, the details of a website in the dashboard, and who not, if that makes sense. So a user is a collaborator if website collaborations find by user returns true. I guess it would be interesting to see the sequel that is generated by this statement. If it doesn't work out of the box, I'll take a look at that. Expected true, but got a website collaboration. That's fine. I guess if I'm happy if that's not nil, so we could say not website collaborations nil. And I'd have to say role collaborator as well. You visited our website and got an SSL certificate error. That's interesting. Which website did you visit? That's something we should fix immediately. Okay. So this test did actually work. So I can find out if a user is a collaborator Okay, I'll check that. So it's our main company website that doesn't work. Obviously, you used HTTPS, I guess. Oh, okay. Maybe your browser. I guess you are using Chrome, and your browser uh, used SSL by default. I guess you just entered the. Yeah. Well, I'll do a few tests and see if there's something wrong or if there's simply a configuration error. I'll always have the cobbler's shoes as a defense, I guess. Um, Now that's strange. While this method seems to work, yeah. Thanks for reporting it. I don't think I'll spend a lot of time on testing it, and I'll see what's wrong. And we'll have to do a few things to our websites anyway, so I can uh, put this into my to-do list. Now, users collaborator seems to work, but user can read doesn't seem to work. Even though I'm only delegating user is collaborator or user is owner. Well, user is owner will return false for the time being, but user is collaborator should work. And I wonder why it doesn't. Here we create a user, we create a website, we create a collaboration between the two, and then we check, and it should be able to read website. Maybe I just hadn't saved the file. Nope. Let's do some raw debugging. Mm-hmm. I think I know what the SSL problem is. We probably are using a Rapid SSL certificate for the website because the website itself doesn't need a lot of protection here. However, Chrome recently started to distrust certificates that have been issued before a certain date because Repetitial, or to be precise, their parent company Symantec screwed up royally with maintaining their CA, and so that it might be the case of a certificate that, while not having expired, is too old for Chrome to trust it. And we'll simply have to reissue the certificate to get rid of these warnings. So, collaborator is false. Now that's really strange because I did use the same code above to recognize a collaborator. Expect website, user is collaborator. That's very strange. So no, this user is not. I don't get it. Oh. Well, I should be explicit at least. While collaborator is the default role, let's still make it explicit. And up there as well. And then another, no, that still should work. I'm pretty sure it's one of these small glitches where you simply use the wrong word or something, the wrong variable, or just thought you had copied something which you didn't have, and you just can't see it. And normally it's one of these things that take me ages to find, or even I'm not able to find them while doing the live stream. And 10 minutes after shutting down the live stream, I spot the error and my head hits the desk. So let's take another closer look here. I'm creating a user on the website. I connect the two. So we could simply just a second. I feel a sneeze coming on. Nope. Okay. It'll probably surprise me. And I apologize in advance. Let's see if this actually returns the same result. Collaborator 2. And in the check, it's false. What? I guess here it's true. Oh, that's some strange behavior in the way these abilities are modeled, I guess. So let's see. Can read collaborator is false and the test collaborator is true. Okay, just a second. Hmm. Something is not right here. Let me see. Website, website.id, user, collaborator.id. we dealing with the same objects here? Even get an output here. Can read, and test collaborator seems not to have been saved. Can read doesn't seem to be called properly. We can check if user can read works. By adding a new test up there. So we'll actually allows access to collaborators. Expect website user can read collaborator to be true as well. So can read seems to work. It's just that this ability stuff doesn't work here. So it's probably the way I've built this ability. Does it output test collaborator? Yeah, website 5 user 2 can read collaborator, website 3 user 1 did work. That's the previous test, and then test collaborator user 5 website 5 user 2 is true. However, when ability runs can read, there's neither a website ID nor a user ID. Maybe I would have more insight. Nope. So that's definitely how ability is called. Let's take another look at defining abilities with blocks. Oh, of course, only for object attributes. Still. Okay, user admin, this won't always get called. Can update if. Okay. Okay. Well, that should be easy to fix. So, can read website. Wait, how does this work? Can read website. If user admin. Yes, user is. But that's a method that is called on user. Maybe can't really do what I'd like to do. Let's see. He's working with model IDs. I think I need to dive a bit deeper into how to work with can. I'm really not sure how I would build permissions on a many-to-many association like this. Or maybe it's just because I'm a bit tired. Can through association. Nested resources. Let's say we have nested resources set. That's with controllers. Polymorphic associations. Has many through associations. Oh, maybe that's exactly what I'm looking for. We have a user who has many groups users and many groups through groups users. Okay, so I haven't even modeled that, so let's do that first. While I told it has many website collaborations, I also need to tell it has many users through website collaborations. Then we have the group, which has in turn groups users, and then indirectly it has users, yeah. And we have the belongs to group inverse of groups users, belongs to user inverse of groups users, independent. So we can just say groups users group condition on group. Don't forget the inverse of option, it is the trick to make it work correctly. So I can say someone can create a user if the user is part of a group, okay. Uh-huh. Okay, so I have, and the user has many websites through website collaborations. How does this inverse of work? Okay. Website collaborations. That's something I need to look up. I have no idea what that means. Does this even start to work? At least there's no syntax error, I guess. And is that what I want? I want to tell it, okay, take your website collaborations and see if you'll find a user in there that fits. Nope. Still doesn't work. Well, okay. I don't think I'll be able to resolve that today. I'll have a closer look at that stuff and try a few more things. And I'll get back to you on this next time, when I hope to see you again next week. No, wait, it's Tuesday, so I'll see you on Thursday, and I'll report back on my findings. And if I find something before Thursday, I'll add a comment to the agenda issue for today, so you can get real-time updates on that thing. And if you have any feedback, questions, or something you'd like to add, please add a comment to this issue as well. And I guess that's it for today. Thank you for joining me here. Thanks for chatting with me. Thanks for following. If you haven't done so yet, please follow the channel. It'll really help me. And until Thursday, cheers.